Once I saw Koizumi lift up the unconscious Nagato, I quickly headed down the stairs. Ice bags, huh? Where am I supposed to look? That particular line of thought was probably a sign that I hadn't recovered from seeing the shock of Nagato collapse. I still couldn't believe what had happened. As a result, I could no longer be bothered to care about the mysterious surroundings of fake Asahina in my room or the phonies that had appeared in the other rooms. Do whatever you want, it's got nothing to do with me. Balls. We were seriously in trouble. Damn, I'd been hoping to let Nagato enjoy a normal and peaceful life for a while, but this would be exactly the opposite. As I wandered around without any idea where to find any ice bags, I somehow ended up in the kitchen. In my house, we kept the cooling sheets in the fridge instead of the first aid box. Was that the case in this mansion? Wait. I froze as I was about to grab the handle of the large refrigerator. I visualized an ice box and concentrated as hard as I could. Then I opened the fridge. Knew it. A blue ice bag rested on top of a head of cabbage. How considerate of them. A very convenient mechanism, but it was having the opposite effect, that of strengthening my resolve, that we couldn't stay here another second. I left the dining hall with a chilly ice bag in my hand when I saw Koizumi standing by the entrance to the mansion. He was staring at the door, but I wasn't sure why. How did he order him to grab snow or something? I walked over to offer a few words of candid advice, but Koizumi noticed me and spoke first. Perfect timing. Did you take a look at this? He pointed at the door. I saved my own remarks for later and looked in the direction he was pointing to discover something so strange I was left speechless. What is this? Those were the only two words I could manage. I didn't notice earlier. Yes, it wasn't here before. I was the last person to enter the mansion. I checked the door when I shut it, and this wasn't there at the time. An object that was difficult to describe had been attached to the inside of the front door of the mansion. I guess the closest comparison would be something along the lines of a console or panel. A shiny metal plate, or I guess that panel, would be the most appropriate word here. Around 20 inches long on each side was affixed to the wooden door, sorting symbols and numbers that made my head hurt. I sucked it up and focused my eyes. X minus y equals d minus 1 minus c. And a little below that, x equals blank, y equals blank, c equals blank. The boxes were actually indentations, as if we were supposed to place something over them. I stared at the three holes in bewilderment. The pieces are over there. Koizumi pointed at the floor where there was a wooden box with an assortment of numbered blocks inside. On closer look, there were 3 sets of blocks numbered 0 through 9. I picked one up. It was shaped like a mahjong tile and was about the same weight. However, the difference was that the surfaces of these tiles were engraved with Arabic numerals. Blocks for the 10 different digits with 3 of each, all stored in a flat wooden box. The numbers that correspond to the solution for this equation, Koizumi said as he picked up a block and examined it, should be placed in the open spaces, I presume. I looked back at the formula again. My head began to hurt. Math was one of the many subjects that gave me considerable trouble. Koizumi, do you know the answer? I believe that I have seen a similar problem before, but I'll need more information before I can try to solve it. If the goal is to simply make both sides of the equation equal, there are a multitude of possible combinations. But if this puzzle only has one correct solution, we will need additional conditions before we can settle on an answer. I turned my attention to the letter in the equation that didn't quite fit. What's with the D? It looks like we aren't required to solve for it. And that's the only letter that's uppercase. Koizumi toyed with the number 0 pile as he lowered his voice. This formula. I have a feeling that I recognize it. It's on the tip of my tongue. What was it? I'm pretty sure that I saw this recently. He stood in place with his brow creased. That's unusual. You rarely ever see Koizumi with a serious look on his face, so deep in thought. So, is this supposed to mean something? I return the tile in my hand to the box. I can see the math problem suddenly popped up on the inside of the door. Well, why does it matter? Yes. Koizumi seemed to snap out of it. It's the key. The door has been locked. There is no way to open it from the inside. I spent some time fiddling with the doorknob to no avail. What? You'll understand once you give it a try. As you can see, there's no keyhole or lock on the inside. I gave it a try. The door wouldn't open. Who locked the door and how? If this is an automatic lock, we should be able to open the door from the inside. More proof that common sense does not apply in this space. Koizumi went back to his mindless smile. I do not know who is responsible, but someone is trying to trap us in here. The windows have all been sealed shut, and the door to the entrance is locked tight. So what about the formula on the panel? A quiz for killing time? If I'm not mistaken, this formula is the key to opening the door. Koizumi sounded rather calm. Only means of escape, provided to us by Nagato. Koizumi paid no heed to the rush of nostalgia I was experiencing after recent memories had resurfaced as he continued to rattle away. You could call this a war of data, a form of limited conflict, if you will. Someone has trapped us within this alternate space. Nagato was countered by providing us with a means of escape. I assumed that this formula would be the result. If we solve this equation, we will be able to return to our original dimension. If we fail, we'll be stuck here. Simple as that. Koizumi rapped on the door. We have no way of knowing the basic details of this war. As this is a war of data between elemental entities, it is beyond our understanding. However, their struggle is manifested through such practical measures. This panel would be one such example. A math problem didn't seem to fit in with this bizarre mansion. This is no coincidence. Each of us experienced a rather peculiar dream, which was immediately followed by Nagato's collapse and the appearance of this panel on the door. This sequence of events did not occur by accident. They must be related somehow. If Koizumi was worried in any way, he was doing a great job of hiding it. I am positive this is the key to our escape, most likely courtesy of Nagato. I checked to see if it said copyright by Yuga Nagato on the panel anywhere. It didn't. This is merely conjecture, but I believe that Nagato's power is limited within the space. Now that her link with the data overmind has been severed, she can only rely on her innate abilities. That would explain the haphazard means of escape. You're making a lot of sense from your conjecture. Yeah, I suppose the agency has made contact with the other interfaces aside from Nagato, so I happen to have access to certain information. I was interested in hearing about these other aliens, but there wasn't time for that right now. We needed to deal with this weird puzzle first. I was looking between the symbols on the panel and the numbered blocks on the wooden box when I remembered something Nagato had said in her flat voice. This space is putting a strain on me. I didn't know the identity of the person who had led us into this mansion in the middle of a blizzard, but I wasn't going to forgive whoever was responsible for Nagato's getting a fever and passing out. I wasn't about to go along with that little puke's plans. I was ready to do whatever it took to get out of this place and back to Tsuruya's vacation home, accompanied by every single SOS Brigade member, no exceptions. Nagato had done her job. I couldn't see or hear her handiwork, but I was certain she'd been fighting this invisible enemy from the second we'd stepped into this alternate space. That was probably why she looked more out of it than usual. As a result, she was able to create this small opening as she collapsed. Now it was our turn to open the door. Let's bust out of this joint. Koizumi responded to my proclamation with an easy smile. Of course that was the plan. This place may be comfortable, but I wouldn't want to stay here forever. Utopia and dystopia are merely two sides of the same coin. Koizumi. My voice was so serious that I surprised myself. Can you use your ESP to open a hole? The situation's looking bad. With Nagato the way she is now, you're probably the only one who can do something about this. You are overestimating my abilities. Koizumi was still smiling despite her current predicament. I do not recall ever saying that I am an omnipotent expert. My powers only come into play under certain conditions. You should be aware of that fact, right? I didn't bother listening to the rest of his sentence. I grabbed Koizumi by the collar and pulled him over to me. I didn't ask for your excuses. I glared at Koizumi in that cynical smile of his. Don't you specialize in alternate space? Asahina can't be depended on, and Haruhi's out of the question. There must be something you can do, like to get the cave cricket. Or is your agency made up of just a bunch of useless losers? I would also be a useless loser in this case. There is nothing I could do. I couldn't even keep my cool, which probably placed me below Koizumi. The only idea I could come up with was to beat the crap out of Koizumi and then have him beat the crap out of me, since I wouldn't be able to beat the crap out of myself without holding back. What are you doing? A sharp, irritated voice stabbed into my back. Kyon, what's going on with those ice bags? You're taking forever, so I came down to check on you, and what? You're sparring with Koizumi? What are you trying to do? Haruhi was standing at full height with her hands on her hips. The look on her face reminded me of an old man in my neighborhood who managed to catch a chronic persimmon thief red-handed. Could you be more considerate of Yuki? There isn't any time for you to play around. If Haruhi was interrupting this exchange between Koizumi and me as playing around, her mind was clearly elsewhere. I released my grip on Koizumi and picked up the ice bag from the spot on the floor where it had fallen when I wasn't paying attention. Haruhi quickly took the bag from me. What is this? Her gaze shifted to the odd equation on the door. Koizumi straightened his collar as he replied. Indeed, the two of us were wondering the same thing. Do you have any ideas? Isn't that Euler? I was thrown off by Haruhi's instant response. Koizumi continued. You mean Leonard Euler, the mathematician? I don't know his first name. Koizumi looked back at the puzzle panel on the door for a few seconds. I see. He snapped for dramatic effect. Euler's polyhedron theorem. There must be a variation of that. Suzumiya, I am impressed you were able to recognize this. I might be wrong, but D is probably where you put the number of dimensions, I'm guessing. Let's not worry about whether you're right or wrong. I have a much more obvious question that needs to be answered first. Who is Euler? What did he do? What's a polyhedron theorem? Do we learn about this in math? Though I was hesitant to ask all of these questions since I was always half asleep during math class. No, this usually doesn't come up in high school math class. However, I'm sure you've heard of the 7 bridges of Königsberg. That I know. That was one of the puzzles math teacher Yoshizaki mentioned in class. You have 2 islands connected to the mainland by a number of bridges, and you have to cross all of them once and only once. I remember that there isn't a solution. Yes, Koizumi nodded. The problem was originally formed on a flat plane, but Euler proved that it also applied to a 3-dimensional plane. He formed a number of famous theorems, and this is one of them. Koizumi explained. His theorem states that when you look at a convex polyhedron and take the number of verticals plus the number of faces minus the number of edges, you will always end up with 2. Koizumi must have recognized my desire to abandon anything related to math as he smiled wryly and slid one arm behind his back. Then, I shall use a simple diagram to explain. He took out a black felt-tip pen. Where did that come from? Had he been carrying that around on him? Or did he use the same method I had used to obtain the ice bag? Koizumi knelt down on the floor and began to cheerfully draw on the red carpet. Neither Haruhi nor I even moved to stop him. In this mansion, drawing on furniture, floors, or walls was clearly not a problem. Eventually, he produced a picture of a dice-like cube. I'm sure you can see this is a regular hexahedron. There are a total of 8 vertices. It has 6 faces, as the name will tell you, and there are 12 edges. 8 plus 6 minus 12 equals 2, yes? Koizumi must have felt that wasn't enough as he drew a new diagram. Now we have a square pyramid. Count and you'll find there are 5 vertices, 5 faces, and 8 edges. 5 plus 5 minus 8 will also yield an answer of 2. You could apply this formula to any polyhedron up to a hectahedron with 100 faces, and the answer will always be 2. This would be Euler's polyhedron theorem. I see, I understand now. Why did Haruhi mention the number of dimensions? That is also quite simple. This polyhedron theorem is not limited to three-dimensional objects, as it can also apply to two-dimensional planes. However, in that case, vertices plus faces minus edges will consistently yield an answer of 1. The form of this theorem can also be applied to the 7 bridges of Königsberg. A new doodle appeared on the carpet. As you can see, this is a pentagram, a star that can be drawn in one stroke. I did counting myself this time. There were 1, 2, 10 vertices. It had 6 faces. The number of edges would be highest at a total of 15, which would give you the equation 10 plus 6 minus 15, and the answer was 1. By the time I finished running these calculations in my head, Koizumi had drawn a force diagram. This one looks like a failed attempt at drawing the Big Dipper. The theorem also applies to such irregular figures. I was starting to get sick of this, but I did the math anyways. 7 vertices, 1 face, and 7 edges? I see, you still get 1. Koizumi smiled brightly as he replaced the cap on the felt tip pen. In other words, the answer for the three-dimensional object will equal 2, and the answer for a two-dimensional plane will equal 1. With that in mind, let us return to the formula before us. He used the pen to the point on the panel on the door. X minus y equals e minus 1 minus z. Let us assume that x refers to the number of vertices. We can then assume that y, the variable being subtracted, is the number of edges. The z, or the number of faces, is more difficult to discern, as it was shifted on the right side of the equation and consistently had its sign reversed. As to the d minus 1, the difference should equal 2 for a polyhedron and 1 for a flat plane, which means that d would be 3 when dealing in 3 dimensions and 2 when dealing in 2 dimensions. Thus, d refers to the number of dimensions. D, 4 dimensions. I listened to him in silence and concentrated on thinking. Yeah, I think I understand more or less now, I see. So this is the theorem that Harry Euler came up with. So, I posed the question. What's the answer for this math quiz? Which numerical blocks do we use for x, y, and z? Well, back came Koizumi's answer. I don't know. Not without the original polyhedron or Flame's reference. There's no point then. Where are we supposed to find the original figure? Koizumi merely shrugged, which only added to my irritation. However, that was when something happened. Haruhi, who had been staring at the equation with a look of concentration on her face, abruptly remembered something else she was supposed to do. Forget about this. Anyway, Kyon, she suddenly yelled at me. You need to visit Yuki later. I was going to do that anyway, but why are you being so high and mighty about it? Because she called out your name while she was mumbling. Only once, though. Nagato called out my name? Mumbling? What did she say exactly? She just went, Kyon. Nagato never called me by that name before. Hell, I can't even recall her ever calling me by my actual name or nickname, or any sort of name for that matter. She always addressed me by a second-person pronoun. I felt this irregular haze of emotion built up in my chest. No. Koizumi voiced an objection. Are you sure that she said the word Kyon? Is it possible that you misheard her? What's with him? He's gonna complain about what Nagato says in her sleep? However, Koizumi paid me no attention as he looked straight at Haruhi. Suzumiya, this is very important. Please try to remember. Koizumi's tone was so intense that Haruhi appeared to be surprised as her eyes wandered upward while she thought hard. Yes, I didn't hear her very clearly, so it might not have been Kyon, and her voice was soft. She might have been saying Hyon or Jion, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't Kian or Kyun. I see. Koizumi looked very pleased. You're unsure about the first syllable, but you were able to catch the last part. Aha, I see. Nagito wasn't trying to say kyon or any of those other sounds. She meant to say yon, I believe. Yon asked. Yes, as in the Japanese word for four. What does four have to do with? I stopped in the middle of my sentence and looked back up at the formula. Hey, Haruhi's lips were puckered in irritation. We don't have time to waste on this little math quiz. We need to worry about Yuki, honestly. She grabbed the ice bag as her eyes narrowed angrily. You better come visit her later. Got it? And with that loud cry, she turned and stopped back upstairs. Koizumi watched to make sure she was out of sight before turning back to me with a look of conviction on his face. We may have just been given the required conditions. Now we can solve for X, Y, and Z.